Welcome to Shujin Academy VGM Club. I'm Professor Tom, your faculty sponsor. Today's opening track is Menu from Secret of Evermore, composed by Jeremy Soule. This is the fourth installment in my Chilly McFreeze series of episodes, all focused on relaxing, laid-back video game music. For this episode, I'm choosing to focus on tracks from systems with a more chiptune-y sound rather than tracks that use real, or real-sounding, instruments. That means a lot of songs from the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, a couple from the original PlayStation, and one from the Nintendo DS. I'm planning on doing another Chilly McFreeze episode in the future that's focused on games from newer systems with real instrumentation, or at least good synthesized instrumentation, so look for that at some point. To start off, we'll hear Lovely Faeries from Albert Odyssey, composed by Naoki Kodaka. After that, it'll be Simone's theme from the Genesis version of Shining Force, composed by Masahiko Yoshimura. Shining Force was the first tactical RPG I really enjoyed, and it was my favorite game in that genre until I played Fire Emblem Awakening. And if you're wondering, that does indeed mean that I like Shining Force more than Final Fantasy Tactics or any of the Ogre Battle games. The third song in the block is Sunset Town from SaGa Frontier, composed by Kenji Ito. I've never really tried any of the SaGa games, and maybe I should at some point. I just have such a big backlog of JRPGs that I'm a little nervous to start a new one. My plan for retirement is just to sleep and play video games, so maybe I'll get to it in about 30 years or so. Next up, there's a song from Final Fantasy VI. I've been doing this podcast for well over a year now, and I've only played 2 songs from Final Fantasy VI. That's a shame, because it's one of my favorite soundtracks, so I'm going to try and fix that by playing The Mines of Narshe here, and I'm going to play another Final Fantasy VI song later in this episode. The Mines of Narshe was composed by Nobuo Uematsu, as was everything on the Final Fantasy VI soundtrack. Song number 5 in the block is The Heatwaves from the Sega Genesis version of Ayrton Senna's Super Monaco GP. It was composed by Tokuhiko Uwabo. I found this soundtrack via fellow VGM podcaster Hammock. I'll put a link in the show notes to KVGM The Last Wave, which is his excellent show. The 6th song in the block is Pastoral Nomads from Metal Max Returns. This game is one of the 10 million JRPGs for the Super Famicom that never got released over here. The Metal Max series stands apart from other JRPGs because all the games are set after a nuclear apocalypse instead of using a fantasy setting. The composer is Satoshi Kadokura. For the penultimate song in this block, it'll be Menu from New 3D Golf Simulation, Waialae no Kiseki for the Mega Drive. This is another game that was released in Japan but not the US, although we did get the Super Nintendo version of the game. Yumi Kinoshita is generally credited as composer for this game, although there were some other people on the sound team that I'll list in the show notes. And finally, we'll close out the block with Set Me Free from the Genesis version of Minnesota Fat's Pool Legend. Composers for this game were Masaaki Iwasaki, Taihei Sato, Seiji Momoi, and Shoujo Sakai. Enjoy the music! Those songs were Lovely Faeries from Albert Odyssey, Simone's Theme from Shining Force, Sunset Town from SaGa Frontier, The Mines of Narshe from Final Fantasy VI, The Heat Waves from Super Monaco GP, Pastoral Nomads from Metal Max Returns, Menu from new 3D golf simulation Waialae no Kiseki, and Set Me Free from Minnesota Fat's Pool Legend. For our second music block, it'll be all Super Nintendo all the time. The first song I'm playing is the second of 2 Final Fantasy VI songs in this episode. It's Kids Run Through the City, another town theme, once again composed by Nobuo Uematsu, and playing this song will have officially doubled the count of FF6 songs I've played on this show. After that, it'll be Sailing the Ocean from Romancing SaGa, composed by SaGa series mainstay Kenji Ito, and then it'll be Select Alive from Live Alive, composed by Yoko Shimomura, which makes a trifecta of songs from Golden Age Square SNES classics. Fourth in the block is Monkey Song from Mario Paint, composed by Hirokazu Hip Tanaka. Song number 5 in the block is Unused Song 2 from the Flintstones, composed by Keith Tinman and Jonathan Dunn. Back in episode 12, I featured some great soundtracks from mediocre games where the composers did a much better job than the game deserved, and the Flintstones game for the SNES has a soundtrack that could have fit in right there. Finally in the block, it'll be Asia from Aerobiz. I'm going to credit the Koei sound team for this one because I couldn't find individual composer credits, and this game came out on 8 platforms, which makes it very challenging to determine who did what. That said, whoever put it together made some really solid tunes. Alright, I've talked enough. Here are the songs. Those songs were Kids Run Through the City from Final Fantasy VI, Sailing the Ocean from Romancing Saga, Select Alive from Live Alive, Monkey Song from Mario Paint, Unused Song 2 from the Flintstones, and Asia from Aerobiz. And now for a word from our sponsor. This episode of Shujin Academy VGM Club is brought to you by your friendly local item shop. Come to an item shop and find a whole variety of goods to bring you renewed vitality, heal your ailments, and maybe even a useful buff or two. Find item shops in a village, town, or castle near you. And now, back to the show. We'll begin our last block of songs with Little Sweet Cafe from the Super Famicom version of Seiken Densetsu 3, also known as Trials of Mana. I'm really happy that this game finally got an official American release after years of only being available via fan translation. Sometimes the cyberpunk nightmare dystopia of the year 2023 has its perks. The second song in the block is Mast in the Mist from Uncharted Waters New Horizons for the Super NES. This song was composed by Yoko Kanno, who's generally better known as an anime composer and specifically better known as the composer for my all-time favorite anime, Cowboy Bebop. But before she worked as an anime composer, she was part of the Koei sound team and worked on several of that company's games. My fellow VGM podcasters, the Super Marcato Brothers, did an entire episode on her, and I'll link to it in the show notes. The third song is Game Sync from Pokemon Black and White for the DS, composed by Shoto Kageyama. Song number 4 is Shop from the Super NES version of Waterworld, composed by Dean Evans. I was surprised to find that I hadn't played this song already, and I think that playing it means that I've played every song on this excellent soundtrack. Song number 5 is Managing Scenario 3 from Aerobiz Supersonic for the Super NES. As with the original Aerobiz, I couldn't find original composer credits here, and the game came out for a whole bunch of platforms, so we'll just credit the Koei sound team. After that, it'll be Playin' It Cool from Side Pocket for the Genesis, composed by Imi Shimizu. Side Pocket is a billiards game, and I could tell you that I'm good at it, but not good at real billiards. However, that would be a lie. I am bad at both video game billiards and also reality billiards. For our last song in the block, it's the lovely Shut In by Snow from Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation, composed by Nobuo Uematsu. I've always thought this was one of the prettiest songs on the soundtrack, and I'm happy to share it here. Let's kick back and relax with some tunes. Those songs were Little Sweet Cafe from Seiken Densetsu 3, Masked in the Mist from Uncharted Waters New Horizons, Game Sync from Pokemon Black and White, Shop from Waterworld, Managing Scenario 3 from Aerobiz Supersonic, Playin' It Cool from Side Pocket, and Shut In by Snow from Final Fantasy VII. And that's the show. If you want to reach me, you can find me on Mastodon at Shujin Academy VGM Club at mastodon.coffee or on Discord as Professor Tom 7512. I'm also on both Tumblr and Instagram as Shujin Academy VGM Club. Email me at shujinacademyvgmclub at gmail.com, and you can find my channel on YouTube by searching for Shujin Academy VGM Club or use the link in the show notes. Please leave me a 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you find this episode. Look for new episodes on Thursdays whenever I get them done, which is typically once or twice a month. Also, I've got a special bonus episode that'll be coming out soon, so please watch for that one. Special thanks for this episode goes out to fellow VGM podcaster Jameson of Bar Silence Podcast for contributing cover art. You can and should find Bar Silence wherever you download podcasts, and check out his website at barsilence.com. Our outro track today is Omise from Super Hydlide, which is a Sega Genesis remake of Hydlide 3 The Space Memories, or maybe a port depending on how you look at it. Super Hydlide's music was composed by Shigeru Tomita, who also did the original soundtrack for Hydlide 3 on the PC-98, and I found this soundtrack via my podcast bro Rage Cage and his excellent show VG Emporium, where he did an entire episode comparing the original soundtrack to the Genesis remake. I'll put a link to that episode in the show notes. And also, as a shameless bit of self-promotion, I'll be appearing on an upcoming episode of VG Emporium, so look for that soon. Thanks for listening. I'm Professor Tom, and I'll see you next time on Shujin Academy VGM Club.